For over 100 years, people across North America have described the same impossible creature. A 7-foot canine that stands up and walks like a man. Tonight we go through the most famous Dogman legends ever recorded, from the Michigan Dogman to the Beast of Bray Road, and I will rate every single case on my likelihood scale, from obvious hoax to genuinely unexplained. Stay until the end because the final rating surprised even me. If you appreciate me making this type of content, let me know by tapping that like button. Let's begin, and our first stop is Michigan.
The Michigan Dogman is one of the most famous cryptid legends in the United States, strongly tied to the forests and small towns of northern Michigan. It is usually described as a 7-foot-tall canine creature that walks upright like a man, with a muscular, human-like torso, the head of a dog or wolf, glowing blue or amber eyes, and a terrifying howl said to sound like a human scream. Reports place most sightings in the northwestern part of Michigan's Lower Peninsula, especially around Wexford County, Manistee County, Traverse City, Cross Village, Big Rapids, and the Manistee National Forest. According to legend, the Michigan Dogman follows a strange cycle, appearing every 10 years during years ending in the number 7. Another old belief claims that loud clapping can drive the creature away. These details help turn the Dogman from a regional oddity into a lasting piece of Michigan folklore. Some stories say the creature was known long before modern reports, and that legends of a strange beast existed during the time of the Odawa people near the Manistee River. Whether that connection is historical fact or later storytelling is debated, though it added to the mystery surrounding the creature. The first widely repeated sighting took place in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan. 2 lumberjacks reportedly encountered a creature they described as having the body of a man and the head of a dog. This early report became the foundation of the Dogman legend and is still the most referenced origin story. Another dramatic case happened in Paris, Michigan in 1937. A man named Robert Fortney said he was attacked by 5 wild dogs. During the encounter, he claimed one of the animals stood and moved on 2 legs. This story is often cited as one of the strangest early reports because it involved multiple animals and direct aggression. Additional reports surfaced in Allegan County during the 1950s, followed by sightings in Manistee and Cross Village in 1967. These repeated accounts from different parts of Michigan helped keep the legend active through the decades. A well-known cluster of sightings came from Grand Haven in Ottawa County between 1993 and 1994. Many of these stories were connected to a witness identified only as Ben. He claimed to have seen the Dogman 3 separate times. In one report from December 1993, he said the creature was standing upright in his parents' driveway on Lakewood Drive behind a parked car. He said it fled only after he began screaming. Another Grand Haven report from 1994 involved a driver who struck what he believed was a deer with his vehicle. When he stopped, there was no body at the scene. Instead, only grey fur remained caught in the front grille of the car. Some lesser-known stories add even more layers to the legend. A 1917 account tells of a sheriff discovering a driverless wagon and wolf-like tracks in the dust nearby. 4 horses were reportedly found dead, and a veterinarian allegedly concluded they died of fright. Another tale from 1938 describes a man fishing along the Muskegon River who encountered a wild dog that stood upright and stared at him. In more recent times, a truck driver claimed a 2017 encounter inside the Manistee National Forest changed his life forever. Stories like this show that the Dogman legend did not fade with older generations and still has a hold on modern witnesses. The creature remained mostly obscure until 1987, when radio disc jockey Steve Cook of WTC MFM in Traverse City, Michigan, recorded a song called The Legend. It was originally created as an April Fool's Day prank. Cook later admitted he invented the song from his imagination and did not know of a real Dogman tradition when he made it. Yet after airing the track, listeners flooded the station with calls claiming they had seen similar creatures. The song quickly became the most requested on the station. Cook sold cassette copies for $4 and donated proceeds to an animal shelter. Over the years, he reportedly received more than 100 witness reports. He later updated the song in 1997 after hearing about an unknown canine breaking into a cabin in Luther, Michigan, and re-recorded it again in 2007 with mandolin backing. Cook remained skeptical of the creature itself, though he said he believed many witnesses genuinely experienced something they could not explain. That view is often central to the Dogman mystery. Some people may have seen bears, wolves, misidentified animals, or shapes in poor light. Others insist they encountered something far stranger. The Michigan Dogman has also appeared in television programs such as Monster Quest in 2010 and Monsters and Mysteries in America in 2014. Online channels and storytellers have continued spreading the legend, giving it a new audience far beyond Michigan. Whether the Michigan Dogman is an undiscovered animal, mistaken identity, folklore strengthened by repetition, or something more unusual, it remains one of America's most enduring monster legends.
Here is what stands out to me about this one. The modern legend exploded because of a song. A radio prank from 1987 invented from pure imagination, and suddenly 100 people called the station saying they saw the same thing. That tells you a lot about how these legends grow. Give people a name and a shape, and every strange thing they half saw in the woods snaps into that shape. That said, the 1887 Lumberjack Report and the 1937 Forney case came along before the song existed, so the raw material was already there. My best guess is a mix of bears standing upright, large canines crossing the dark road, and a very catchy song that glued everything together into one creature. The 10-year cycle with sightings in years ending in 7, I believe that is pure storytelling. I love it, but I would keep it out of any evidence file. Still, reports this old and this spread out earned this legend a spot in my unexplained pile. After reviewing the reports, witness consistency and available evidence, the Michigan Dogman receives a level 3, unexplained tale. From Wexford County to the Manistee Woods, this legend still prowls through Michigan nights. Now, Michigan may be the most famous Dogman legend in America, but it was far from the only one. Just west of there, Minnesota had its own chilling encounters.
The Minnesota Dogman is an alleged cryptid reported across several counties in Minnesota, especially in the northern and central parts of the state. Witnesses often describe a creature similar to the Michigan Dogman and Wisconsin's Beast of Bray Road, a large wolf-like being with humanoid features, unusual size, and the ability to move upright. While there is still no confirmed proof, a handful of eyewitness stories have kept the legend alive for years. One of the most detailed encounters came from Fergus Falls in Otter Tail County, Minnesota, in early 2009. A man said he had never believed in creatures like this before the sighting. He explained that he was staying at his mother-in-law's home a few miles outside Fergus Falls while his wife and her mother were in town. Around 6:30 to 6:45 in the evening, near sunset, he left to meet them for a 7 p.m. movie. While driving on Wendell Road near the Mustinka River, he noticed 3 white-tailed deer beside the road, 2 smaller yearlings and a larger doe. Being an avid hunter and someone studying wildlife biology, he stopped to watch them. As he looked toward the deer, he noticed something crouched behind a tree on his side of the road, watching the animals as if stalking them. He said the creature had one hand braced against the tree and appeared to be standing or crouching on 2 legs rather than 4. The hands looked long, slender, and unlike paws, with what seemed to be opposable thumbs. He estimated that if it stood fully upright, it would be over 7 feet tall. He described a protruding muzzle, broad shoulders, a slim waist, thick muscular thighs, and dark brown fur covering the body. Snow on the ground blocked his view of the feet. After several tense seconds, the deer suddenly ran off. The witness then said the creature slowly turned and stared directly at him, blinking but not moving, almost as if angry that he had ruined its hunt. Frightened, he accelerated and left immediately. The next morning, around 10 a.m., he returned to inspect the area. Beneath the tree there was little snow, so no clear prints were visible there. However, he found 3 tracks leading from a nearby field. He said they looked canine in shape, around 6 to 7 inches long, with 4 toe-like marks in the snow. Another major report came from St. Louis County near Duluth, Minnesota, on an Air National Guard base beside the International Airport in early September 1999. A security forces airman working the overnight 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift said he was patrolling alone between 2 and 3 in the morning. The north side of the base bordered large wooded areas, which he said already felt unsettling at night. While driving near the baseball field, his headlights caught a pair of reflective eyes staring back at him from roughly eye level while he sat inside an F-150 patrol truck. At first, he assumed it was a large buck deer that others on base had mentioned seeing. Curious, he drove closer. As he turned toward the field, he caught the rear end of the creature as it leapt down a slope about 12 to 15 feet into a brush line leading to dense forest. He said the animal was only around 20 feet away during the leap. What he saw looked canine, with a long tail over 2 feet in length, hind legs shaped like a dog's, and back paws larger than his hands. The fur appeared wavy, thick, matted, and blondish or light brown. He then stepped out of the truck carrying a flashlight and M16 rifle and approached the slope. From the darkness ahead, he heard the creature crashing through the woods toward the northwest. He said it sounded like a moose charging through the trees because of how much noise it made. That was the moment he became truly alarmed and hurried back into the truck. He later insisted he was a trained observer, an experienced hunter, and someone who had worked with animal rehabilitation through the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, saying he knew local wildlife well and did not mistake an ordinary animal. The third report came from Long Prairie in Todd County, Minnesota, during the summer, though no exact year was given. A man visiting his grandmother said he was helping her with chores and went outside before sunrise to tend the garden. He also planned to hunt squirrels for dinner and claimed to have already shot around 20 squirrels that morning. Near the edge of the woods behind the property, he noticed what he described as a humanoid dog creature sitting and watching him. He said it did not charge or approach, but he fired a couple of shots toward it. According to the witness, the creature yelped and ran into the forest. He contacted local police, who searched the area. They reportedly found several paw prints, but concluded he had likely fired at a wolf. Later, when he told his grandmother the full story, she appeared to believe him and even asked him to show her exactly where it happened. Skeptics believe these encounters may involve wolves, black bears, deer seen in poor lighting, or fear-altering memory during sudden events. Others point to repeated themes such as unusual height, canine appearance, intelligence, upright posture, and witnesses who claimed strong familiarity with wildlife. The stories remain unverified, though they continue to give the Minnesota Dogman a place in upper Midwest folklore.
On paper, these witnesses look excellent. A hunter studying wildlife biology, a trained security airman, people who know what a deer looks like at dusk, and I respect that. But look closer. The only physical trace we have is a set of tracks, canine-shaped, 6 to 7 inches long. You know what leaves canine tracks that size? A wolf. And Minnesota has thousands of wolves. The Duluth case interests me the most because the airman only caught the rear of the animal for a second or two as it leaped down a slope. A large wolf moving fast at 3 in the morning, seen by a tired man on an overnight shift in headlights at the edge of dark woods. The brain fills the gaps, and it fills them with the scariest option available. After reviewing the reports, witness consistency, and the available evidence, the Minnesota Dogman receives a level 2. Doubtful rumor. With stories stretching from Duluth to Fergus Falls, this legend still has sharp teeth in Minnesota folklore. Minnesota gave us hunters, patrol officers, and roadside sightings. But our next creature feels even older, like something pulled straight from colonial folklore.
The Dewayo is one of Maryland's lesser-known cryptid legends, reported mainly around West Middletown, Wolfsville, Gambrill State Park, Cunningham Falls, and other parts of Frederick County, Maryland. Witnesses describe it as a wolf-like mammal that walks upright like a human, combining the features of a large canine with the posture and movement of a bipedal creature. In many ways, it fits into the same family of stories as Dogman and Werewolf legends, though the Dewayo has its own local identity tied closely to Western Maryland folklore. The creature is usually described as standing around 6 feet tall, though some witnesses suggested it was even bulkier, comparing it to the size of a bear or deer depending on the angle and distance. It reportedly had dark or black shaggy fur, a long bushy tail, powerful hind legs, and forelegs used almost like arms. Several witnesses said it growled like a wolf or dog, while others claimed it let out terrible screams that echoed through the woods. That combination of canine sounds, upright movement, and heavy fur helped build its reputation as something far outside an ordinary animal sighting. According to local legend, the Dewayo is said to be the mortal enemy of another famous Maryland monster, the Snallygaster. Stories claim the two creatures fought vicious battles dating back to the early settlement days of the Middletown Valley. Whether those tales were meant as entertainment, symbolic folklore, or genuine belief is unclear, though they gave the region a unique monster mythology unlike anywhere else in the United States. Some researchers believe the Dewayo legend may have roots in Pennsylvania Dutch traditions. One possible influence is the Hexenwolf, a wolf-like being from German folklore. Since Pennsylvania Dutch settlers brought many Old World beliefs into Maryland and nearby regions, it is possible those stories blended with local fears, wildlife encounters, and oral tradition to create the Dewayo legend. The earliest commonly cited report came in 1944 in West Middletown, Frederick County, Maryland. Witnesses claimed to hear frightful screams in the area. Sounds disturbing enough to gain local attention. Reports also mentioned strange footprints left behind, though no verified evidence survived. Even at this early stage, the two details that would define later stories were already present: terrifying vocalizations and unusual tracks. The most famous Dewayo encounter happened in 1965. A man using the alias John Becker told local newspapers about an attack near his home. Becker said he went outside after hearing a strange noise in his yard. There, he encountered the creature. According to his account, the Dewayo came toward him, rose onto its hind legs, and attacked. Becker claimed he physically fought with the beast until it retreated into the woods. His description became the standard image of the Dewayo. He said it was as big as a bear, covered in long black hair, had a bushy tail, and growled like a wolf or dog. The story drew strong attention, and after it appeared in newspapers, more reports began surfacing. This is a common pattern in folklore cases, where one widely shared encounter encourages others to come forward with similar experiences. In the summer of 1966, another witness identified only as Jim A. reported seeing the Dewayo near the outskirts of Gambrill State Park, Maryland. He said he was heading toward a campsite when he came across the creature. As he approached, it backed away and released a horrid scream. He described it as a dark brown, shaggy two-legged animal about the size of a deer. What made this report especially unusual was the movement. Jim said its legs stuck outward from the sides of its body, causing it to move in an awkward, almost spider-like way. That detail differs from standard werewolf legends and gives the Dewayo a stranger physical profile than many upright canine cryptids. Another sighting occurred in the fall of 1976 when two men were driving on Route 77 in Frederick County, Maryland. They reported a large creature running across the road directly in front of their car. Like earlier witnesses, they described it as wolf-like with dark fur. They also added a rare detail, saying the lower half of its body had striped barring. That feature has not been widely repeated, though it remains one of the more curious elements in the case history. In 1978, two park rangers reported seeing a large hairy creature running on two legs near Cunningham Falls, Maryland. The ranger profession adds interest because such witnesses are often familiar with local wildlife and terrain. Though details were limited, the report kept the Dewayo legend active into the late 1970s. Skeptics suggest the Dewayo may be explained by black bears seen standing upright, escaped animals, misidentified dogs, poor lighting, fear, or stories growing larger with repetition. Bears can stand and move briefly on two legs, especially if startled or investigating something, which may explain some encounters. Others believe the descriptions are too consistent in their upright canine appearance, tails, and vocalizations to fit a normal bear. Another possibility is that multiple unrelated sightings were grouped under one name. A screaming noise in the woods, a road-crossing animal, and a close-quarters attack story may not all involve the same source. That often happens with regional cryptid legends, where separate mysteries merge into one recognizable creature. Even so, the Dewayo remains one of Maryland's most distinctive monster tales because it combines werewolf traits, local geography, settler folklore, and repeated sightings across several decades. It also stands apart because of its rivalry legend with the Snallygaster, making Western Maryland home to two connected creatures rather than one isolated monster story. Whether it was misunderstood wildlife, folklore carried from Europe, or something never fully identified, the Dewayo still prowls the backroads and forests of Frederick County legend.
The Dewayo is my favorite type of legend to pick apart because you can see the seams. It has a sworn enemy, the Snallygaster. Creatures with rivals and battle histories belong to mythology, and mythology is built by storytellers over generations. That rivalry alone tells me this grew as a local tradition, the same way legends grew back home in Europe. And the European connection here is direct. The Hexenwolf, a wolf creature from German folklore, arrived in this region with Pennsylvania Dutch settlers. So the template for an upright wolf was already sitting in people's heads, waiting for something to trigger it. Then there is the Becker attack. A man physically wrestles a bear-sized monster in his yard and walks away to tell the newspapers. That fails my plausibility test hard. The wilder the physical claim, the more I push back, and hand-to-hand combat with a monster is about as wild as it gets. My take, an old-world werewolf story, kept alive by black bears on their hind legs. After reviewing the report's witness consistency and available evidence, the Dewayo receives a level 2, doubtful rumor. From West Middletown to Cunningham Falls, the Dewayo still gives Maryland's woods a wild reputation. The Dewayo sounds like a werewolf tale come from another century. Our next case heads north into Canada, where witnesses described something even stranger.
The Gugwe is one of the strangest cryptids in North American folklore, often placed somewhere between Bigfoot and Dogman reports. It is mainly associated with Quebec, Labrador, Northern Ontario, Northern Manitoba, and the Northwest Territories in Canada. Though similar sightings have also been reported in parts of the United States. Unlike the more famous Sasquatch, the Gugwe is usually described with a more animal-like face, featuring a canine or baboon-like snout, making it stand out from the classic human-faced Bigfoot image. The name Gugwe is sometimes translated from Mi'kmaq tradition as face eater or head eater, a title that reflects how feared the creature is in some indigenous stories. Many traditions describe it as dangerous, aggressive, and something to be avoided. That alone separates it from many Bigfoot legends, where the creature is often portrayed as shy or elusive. In Gugwe stories, the being is frequently treated as hostile and capable of attacking humans. Physically, witnesses describe the Gugwe as standing between 6 and 7.5 feet tall. It is said to have a powerful body similar to a chimpanzee, with broad shoulders, long arms, and the ability to knuckle walk. At times, it reportedly moves upright on 2 legs. The head is often described as more gorilla-like, with a pronounced sagittal crest, the ridge of bone found on some apes, such as gorillas, that supports strong jaw muscles. The face is where reports become most unusual, with many describing a protruding muzzle or snout closer to a baboon, canine, or hybrid ape-like form. Its hair is reported in several colours, including grey, white, and black. Some accounts mention a mane-like ridge on the head or neck, adding to its intimidating look. The combination of ape body, canine face, and aggressive behaviour has led some researchers to question whether Gugwe stories are describing a type of Bigfoot, a separate unknown animal, or something closer to Dogman folklore. The Gugwe is usually said to inhabit dense, remote boreal forests, rugged valleys, and wilderness areas where human traffic is limited. This includes the forests of Quebec and Labrador, along with isolated northern regions of Canada. Such terrain would make sightings rare and difficult to verify, which is common in cryptid legends. One of the earliest written Gugwe accounts appears in Elliot Merrick's 1933 book True North, where he described stories from Labrador. Merrick recounted an incident from 1913 involving a girl named Michelin near Traverspine, Labrador. According to the story, Michelin was playing near her family's cabin in a meadow when a towering creature stepped from the tree line. She described it as around 7 feet tall, ape-like, covered in white hair, with very long arms. It mostly walked on 2 legs, though it occasionally dropped to all 4s. One of the most memorable details was the mane or crest on its head compared to the helmet crest of a Roman centurion. When the creature noticed her, it reportedly bared its teeth. Michelin ran screaming back to the cabin. Afterward, tracks were allegedly found around the cabin. They were said to measure around 30 centimeters long, narrow at the heel, and split at the front into 2 broad rounded toes. Some prints were so deep that observers estimated the animal could weigh around 500 pounds. Lumbermen in the area later claimed to find more tracks and trees with bark stripped away, as though something large had been searching for insects. For years afterward, the being was reportedly nicknamed the Traverspine Gorilla and was occasionally seen in the region. Another well-known case is the Beast of 7 Shoots photograph. This is considered one of the few alleged Gugwe images. The photo was taken on June 1st, 1995, by a man named Louis in Parc de 7 Chutes, Quebec, Canada. This park covers about 22 square kilometers of protected forest and connects to the much larger Mont Tremblant National Park, creating a wide wilderness corridor. The image, when enlarged, appears blurry but seems to show an ape-like figure looking toward the camera. Witnesses and researchers have claimed it shows a creature with a snout and a reddish sagittal crest similar to a gorilla. Some viewers think the figure is holding something, with speculation ranging from a dog to a fox. Since the photo location is known, later visitors reportedly checked the site and concluded the figure would have been around human height rather than gigantic. Sightings of Gugwe-like creatures have reportedly continued since the early 1900s, though they remain far less known than Sasquatch reports. Many may have been grouped under general Bigfoot categories, which could explain why the Gugwe receives less attention in mainstream cryptid circles. Some researchers think the Gugwe may be related to another unusual creature called the wood booger, reported in parts of the United States. The wood booger is also described as more aggressive than typical Bigfoot and having a more chimp-like or protruding face. Both legends involve snouts, prominent teeth, and hostile behavior, unlike the flatter-faced Sasquatch image. Skeptics suggest more ordinary explanations. Misidentified bears are often mentioned, especially black bears standing upright. However, bears do not have sagittal crests like gorillas, nor do they naturally resemble baboon-faced apes. Others think the stories are blends of folklore, fear, and sightings of known animals in poor conditions. Some argue the Gugwe may simply be a dramatic regional version of Bigfoot tradition shaped by local culture. The darker folklore surrounding the Gugwe also links it to the Nahanni region of the Northwest Territories, famous for the Valley of the Headless Men, also called Headless Valley. Stories of decapitated victims in that harsh wilderness were later folded into Gugwe legend, though no verified evidence ties the creature to those historical mysteries. What makes the Gugwe stand apart is how often it is described as openly threatening. While Sasquatch is usually portrayed as secretive and avoiding people, the Gugwe is remembered as something feared by those who knew the stories best. Whether it was misunderstood wildlife, an isolated primate legend, a Dogman-type creature, or a regional branch of Bigfoot lore, the Gugwe remains one of Canada's most unsettling wilderness mysteries.
I want to be careful with this one because it sits close to the only door I leave open. An undiscovered animal in a remote, isolated habitat is the kind of claim that breaks the least biology, and the forests of Quebec and Labrador are about as remote as it gets. Here's my problem though. North America has 0 wild primates and 0 fossil records of apes, so a chimp-bodied, baboon-faced animal up there asks biology to bend very far. What genuinely fascinates me is the name. Face Eater, a creature described as dangerous, aggressive, something to be avoided. That sounds like folklore doing its real job, encoding a real danger. If you want people to stay out of deep woods, where bears and wolves hunt, a face-eating monster works better than any warning sign. Someone saw something real, and the story grew teeth around it. The Trevor spine tracks, with 2 broad toes, could easily be overlapping bear prints. The 1995 photo shows a blur the size of a man, so the evidence is thin. But that snout detail repeated across a century of accounts keeps me curious. After reviewing the reports, witness consistency and available evidence, the Gugwe receives a level 3, unexplained tale. From Labrador cabins to the forests of Quebec, the Gugwe leaves behind one question more than tracks. What was really out there? This creature blurs the line between Dogman and Bigfoot, mixing ape-like features with a snouted face. But our next story brought fear into an Ohio town almost overnight.
The Defiance werewolf, also called the Dogman of Defiance, is one of Ohio's strangest summer cryptid cases, centered in Defiance, Ohio, near the Norfolk and Western Railroad tracks close to downtown. The story exploded in July 1972 when multiple witnesses reported seeing a large, hairy, dog-like humanoid moving through the rail yards and nearby brush during the early morning hours. Descriptions varied in some details, though several points kept coming up again and again. Witnesses said it was extremely hairy, roughly 6 to 8 feet tall, sometimes even exaggerated to 7 to 9 feet, badly hunched over, bipedal, and armed in at least one encounter with a wooden board or club. Some reports also said it had huge hairy feet, fangs, dark clothing, and even blue jeans, which only made the whole case feel more bizarre. The first major incident happened on July 25, 1972, in Defiance, Ohio. Ted Davis, a railroad worker on the Norfolk and Western line, was out working in the yard, connecting train cars and air hoses during the overnight shift. While looking down at his work, he he suddenly noticed two massive hairy feet or paws on the ground in front of him. When he raised his eyes, he saw a creature standing there, described as at least 6 feet tall, possibly taller, with dog-like features and a hunched posture. In one version of the story, the creature held a large wooden board, likely a piece of 2x4 lumber, almost as though it had come prepared. Ted said the being struck him on the shoulder before bolting off into the nearby brush. In another telling, he said the creature had the stick over its shoulder and ran before he could even react. Either way, the event made a strong impression because this was not a distant glimpse in the dark. This was a close encounter with an object in the creature's hand. A few days later, on July 30th, Ted Davis returned to work with co-worker Tom Jones, also on the overnight run that served Defiance, Ohio. This time, both men saw the figure again, standing in weeds near the main track and lurking in the bushes at a safer distance. Tom had reportedly laughed off Ted's earlier account at first, though that changed once he saw the figure himself. He described it as so hairy and woolly that he no longer believed it was a simple joke. The creature ran off again when spotted. The men then filed a police report, and this second report pushed local police to treat the situation more seriously. Defiance Police Chief Donald Breckler told the press that police had held back the first report for about a week, though after additional sightings, they were now taking it seriously and were concerned for public safety. He said the descriptions given by the witnesses were similar, though still vague. The first word all of them used, according to him, was very hairy. Breckler leaned toward the idea that it may have been a human in disguise, perhaps wearing a mask, though he also believed there was natural hair involved in what witnesses had seen. He noted that the sightings all happened in the same section of Defiance, Ohio, in a roughly 2-block area near the railroad tracks, close to the police station and factories that operated through the night. That made the case feel even stranger because whoever or whatever it was had been acting boldly in a busy working area. A third sighting soon followed. This time it did not involve Ted Davis. A grocery store employee driving home from a late shift reported seeing a huge dog-like creature run in front of his car around 4 a.m. and disappear quickly. Police said this third witness was local, while the railroad crewmen were from Toledo, Ohio. Around the same time, reports mention another train crewman spotting the creature around 3 a.m. Together, these stories gave the case momentum, and newspapers like the Toledo Blade and the Defiance Crescent News began covering what many were half-jokingly calling a werewolf. As the story spread through Defiance, Ohio, public reaction became a mix of fear, ridicule, and fascination. Some residents thought it sounded like a prank or a local nut loose in the neighborhood. Others began locking doors more carefully at night. Some adults shrugged it off, though many children were said to be frightened and actively watching for the creature. One resident even joked that if he saw the werewolf, police would learn its identity at the hospital after he filled it with buckshot. Police, meanwhile, tried to calm things down because they did not want the town thinking a literal monster was on the loose, though they also did not want to dismiss reports of a creature approaching workers with a club. The descriptions kept piling up. Newspapers and witnesses described the Defiance werewolf as large, humanoid, very hairy, with dog or wolf-like features, a severe hunch, and the ability to move on 2 legs. Some said it ran side to side like a caveman from old movies. Others said it had fangs and huge hairy feet. Some reports added that it wore dark clothing, while others went further and claimed it wore blue jeans. That detail pushed many people toward the idea of a person in costume, though it did not fully explain why multiple witnesses described such a large and frightening figure moving around the same rail yard area in the dead of night. One detail that became part of the case mythology is the moon. Some retellings mention that none of the events happened during a full moon, possibly to point out how unlike a classic werewolf legend this case really was. Yet one newspaper interview with Ted Davis and Tom Jones said the creature appeared twice under a full moon, or at least when the moon looked full by the time they were working Defiance around 4 a.m. That contradiction is worth noting because it shows how quickly folklore starts bending details, especially when newspapers, retellings, and local rumours all begin feeding into each other. For a few weeks in the summer of 1972, Defiance, Ohio stayed on alert. More possible sightings came in, and the story took on a life of its own. Some thought the creature might be a local person dressed in a mask and costume. Chief Breckler even suggested the disguised figure might live nearby or might be riding into town on trains. Others wondered whether the costume theory was a way to quiet panic rather than solve the case. Skeptics pointed to the jeans, the stick, and the limited area of activity as signs that this was likely a hoaxer trying to stir up fear. Believers focused on the size, hair, fangs, odd movement, and repeated witness reports from separate people. There was even a related report outside Defiance. A man from Tiffin, Ohio claimed he saw an ape-like animal north of town in a wooded area on River Road. He described it as covered in hair, with wolfish ears, fangs, and a hunched frame, standing around 6 or 7 feet tall. He fled to his car, though investigators reportedly found no tracks or disturbance. That sighting did not prove a connection, though it showed how quickly similar reports can begin appearing once a strange case gets public attention. By the end of the summer, the sightings faded away, and the Defiance werewolf was not reported again in the same dramatic way. No one was seriously injured, no solid physical evidence settled the matter, and no clear identity was ever revealed. That left the case sitting in an odd place between local hoax, brief mass panic, and one of Ohio's most memorable cryptid flaps. The image that stayed with people was hard to shake, a towering, hairy, hunched creature near the railroad tracks of Defiance, Ohio, appearing in the dark hours before sunrise, then vanishing into the brush before anyone could truly make sense of it.
I love this case because the simple answer is standing right there wearing blue jeans. A creature that carries a piece of lumber and wears pants is a person. The police chief thought it was someone in a mask, and I think he was right. I respect a simple answer, and this is the simplest one in the entire video. But here's the thing. Solving what it was opens a much better question. Who was it? Somebody in Defiance in the summer of 1972 put on a costume and kept returning to the same 2 blocks right next to a police station in a town where at least one resident openly promised buckshot. They risked their life for a prank, week after week. And then, more than 50 years of silence. Nobody ever confessed. Nobody ever found a costume. Small towns are terrible at keeping secrets, and this one held. For me, the silence is the strangest part of the whole story. After reviewing the report's witness consistency and available evidence, the Defiance werewolf receives a level 2. Doubtful rumor. A werewolf with a 2x4 and blue jeans is hard to forget, which is exactly why Defiance still remembers it. From Ohio rail yards and newspaper panic, we now move south to one of the darkest Dogman legends ever told.
The Beast of the Land Between the Lakes, often shortened to the Beast of LBL, is one of the most feared Dogman-style legends in the American South. It is tied to the Land Between the Lakes National Recreation Area, a vast wilderness region spanning western Kentucky and northwestern Tennessee near towns such as Cadiz, Kentucky, Grand Rivers, Kentucky, and areas close to the Tennessee border. With forests, lakes, old roads, remote campsites, and miles of isolated terrain, the region has become the perfect setting for one of America's darkest cryptid stories. Witnesses usually describe the beast as a gigantic half-man, half-wolf creature standing over 7 feet tall. It is said to have a muscular, human-like torso, long, powerful arms, 5-fingered hands ending in sharp claws, digitigrade canine legs, crushing jaws, pointed ears, and glowing red or fiery eyes. Many reports describe it as lean but heavily muscled, fast, aggressive, and horrifying to look at. Unlike some Bigfoot legends, the beast of El Beale is almost always portrayed as openly dangerous. The land between the lakes itself adds to the legend. The area contains hundreds of square kilometers of woods, campgrounds, trails, ridges, and shoreline. Before becoming a recreation area, it was known as Between the Rivers, when communities existed between the Tennessee River and Cumberland River. That long history has allowed older folklore, frontier stories, and newer sightings to blend into one evolving mystery. Several origin legends attempt to explain the beast. One claims it began as a Native American shape-shifting being with the power to become a wolf-like monster. Another says the creature is the restless spirit of a Shawnee shaman who abused his powers, transformed into wolf form, and was killed by his own people. According to the tale, his spirit still roams the forests seeking revenge. A separate story traces the beast to a European settler family who arrived in the 1800s to live in the isolated Between the Rivers region. The father was said to suffer from a curse or disease that drove him mad after dark. The affliction was believed to pass from parent to child. The family supposedly avoided schools, neighbors, and normal society, living in seclusion for generations until they suddenly went silent. When people investigated in the early 1900s, the homestead was allegedly abandoned. Older frontier accounts also mention strange disappearances of hunters in Kentucky woods and unnatural howls echoing through the night. Some tales claim that when bison still roamed Kentucky, mutilated carcasses were found half-eaten with throats torn open by huge claws. Even in modern retellings, some say young bison calves occasionally go missing, and the herd becomes nervous and tightly grouped afterward, as if reacting to a predator. The most famous modern encounter reportedly happened in 1973 and involved a group of Murray State University students camping in the land between the lakes area near Murray, Kentucky. According to the story, several young men were spending a spring weekend in the woods beside a campfire near their Volkswagen microbus. As evening approached, one student walked into the trees to relieve himself. When he returned, he said he felt watched and had heard something sniffing nearby. His friends assumed it was a hog or another normal animal, though he insisted it sounded different. As darkness settled, the group began hearing something large moving through the dry leaves around camp. Whatever it was seemed to circle them quickly and repeatedly. They shined flashlights into the woods, but saw nothing. Then the howling started. Witnesses described it as louder than any wolf, wild and insane, with a chilling quality that sounded almost like mocking laughter. The cries seemed to come first from one side of camp, then another, as though the creature was moving around them at high speed. Soon the students reportedly caught sight of glowing red eyes darting through the darkness. Terrified, they rushed into their Volkswagen bus and decided to flee. As they sped down the road, they realized something was chasing them. In the glow of the taillights, they could make out a large shadowy figure racing behind the vehicle. When the bus slowed at a corner, the students felt a heavy jolt, followed by the sensation that something was holding the van back. They accelerated hard, broke free, and drove all the way back to Murray State University without stopping. Once back on campus, they allegedly found 4 deep claw-like gashes torn into the rear engine compartment cover of the microbus. This detail helped make the case one of the most repeated Beast of LBL stories. Another widely circulated and far darker legend centers on a family camping in the area during the late 1970s or 1980s, depending on the version. In the story, police discovered a blood-soaked motorhome after a brutal attack. The father had reportedly gone outside to investigate a sound and was torn apart. The mother and son were said to have been killed inside the camper. The body of the young daughter was allegedly found partially eaten and lodged in a nearby tree. Massive claw marks were supposedly visible at the scene. Believers often claim authorities covered up the incident to protect tourism in the economically struggling region. Variations of the story place it near Moss Creek, where some say gates were later installed, overnight camping was restricted, and the area closed at sunset. Others claim police privately described shredded bloody clothing, including children's clothes, hanging in trees with blood everywhere. None of these claims have been publicly verified, but the story remains the most notorious part of the Beast of LBL legend. Modern witnesses continue to report strange activity in the region. Campers and hunters describe feeling stalked in the woods, hearing screams or howls at night, and seeing glowing eyes watching from tree lines. Some experienced outdoorsmen reportedly avoid certain areas entirely, while newcomers sometimes dismiss the stories until they experience unexplained sounds themselves. One woman reportedly showed filmmaker Lee Vervoort a cemetery where she claimed to have seen the creature sitting on a large rock. She said she froze in place, stayed silent, and eventually the beast noticed her before running off. Researchers and rumor hunters have also spoken of mysterious military-style bunkers hidden in remote sections of the land between the lakes area. Some claim these structures were used by the army during an operation to trap or destroy the beast. No solid evidence supports those claims, though they have become another layer of the myth. Skeptics point to more realistic explanations. Large black bears can stand upright and appear frightening in low light. Coyotes, bobcats, and feral dogs can produce eerie sounds. Stories grow larger over time, especially in places with strong folklore traditions. Vehicle scratches may come from branches or ordinary damage later linked to the legend. As for the family massacre story, no confirmed public records have verified the event as described. Supporters argue that many reports share repeated details: 7-foot height, canine face, red eyes, terrifying howls, speed, stalking behavior, and aggressive presence. They believe the consistency suggests something more than campfire tales. Whether it was a mix of bear sightings, regional fear, old werewolf legends, or an unknown predator hidden in deep woods, the beast of the land between the lakes remains one of the most chilling cryptid stories in the United States.
The student story splits into two halves for me, and I judge them separately. The first half passes my plausibility test. Something large circling a campsite in the dark, moving through dry leaves, howling. That happens. Bears, coyotes, feral dogs, all of it fits, and any of it would terrify me too. I will be honest, if I heard mocking laughter from the tree line at midnight, I would already be in the van. Then the story escalates. The creature chases a vehicle at road speed, grabs it, physically holds it back, and leaves 4 claw marks. That second half is where I step off. The wilder the physical claim, the harder I push back. And the monster winning a tug-of-war with a Volkswagen is a very wild claim. As for the family massacre, there are 0 records. A quadruple murder in a federal recreation area would leave paperwork, court files, newspaper archives. When a story can only survive by claiming everything was hidden, the story is telling you exactly what it is. After reviewing the reports, witness consistency, and available evidence, the beast of the land between the lakes receives a level 3. Unexplained tale. From the forests of Cadiz to the dark roads near Moss Creek, this legend still keeps campers listening after sunset. This creature may be the most feared Dogman story in the South, but our final case may have the strongest collection of sightings and witnesses of them all.
The Beast of Bray Road is one of the most famous cryptid cases in American folklore, centered around Elkhorn, Delavan, Lyons, Spring Prairie, and other parts of Walworth County, Wisconsin. The creature is usually described as a large wolf-like humanoid standing between 6 and 7 feet tall, covered in fur, with glowing red, orange, or yellow eyes. Witnesses often say it can move both on 2 legs and on all 4s, switching between an upright stride and an animal sprint. Because of those reports, some call it a werewolf. Others believe it is a Dogman-type cryptid, while some researchers compare it to Bigfoot-like creatures such as the Bluff Monster or Eddie. The The name comes from Bray Road, a quiet rural road near Elkhorn, Wisconsin, where many of the best-known sightings took place. During the late 1980s and especially the 1990s, stories became so common that local newspaper reporter Linda Godfrey of the Walworth County Week was assigned to investigate. She began as a skeptic, though later said many witnesses seemed sincere. Her reporting eventually became the well-known book The Beast of Bray Road, Tailing Wisconsin's Werewolf, which helped spread the legend nationwide. Descriptions of the creature are remarkably consistent in several areas. Witnesses often mention brownish-grey, black, silver, or whitish-grey fur, pointed ears, a canine muzzle, muscular shoulders, powerful chest, and a foul odour similar to skunk spray or rotting meat. Some said it had 3 claws plus thumb-like digits, while others reported 5 clawed fingers. Fog and smog are repeatedly mentioned in encounters, adding to the eerie reputation of the area. One of the earliest linked cases dates back to 1936 near Jefferson, Wisconsin, at St. Coletta School for Exceptional Children. A night watchman named Mark Shackleman reportedly saw a dark, hairy creature on top of a Native American burial mound. He said it appeared to be clawing at the earth. When noticed, it moved away. The next day, he returned and claimed to find 3 clawed marks in the ground. On a second night, he returned with only a flashlight and saw it again scratching near the mound. This time, he said it stood upright, was over 6 feet tall, covered in black or dark hair, smelled like rotting meat, and groaned something sounding like Gadara. He claimed the creature made eye contact before slowly walking away. Another story connected to the same region came in 1972. A man claiming to be a Wisconsin DNR agent named David Jetson said a woman living near St. Coletta reported an ape-like figure in her farmyard. He investigated but found nothing. 2 weeks later, she called again and said the creature came onto her porch, rattled the screen door, left a slash mark 7 feet high on the house, then entered the horse shed and inflicted a 30-inch wound on a horse's neck before leaving. The case that helped launch the modern legend happened in late fall 1989. Around 1:30 a.m., Laurie Endrizi was driving along Bray Road when she noticed a figure on the roadside. At first it faced away from her, and she noticed pointed ears. As she passed, her headlights illuminated the front of the creature. She described dark brownish-grey fur, glowing eyes, and large claws gripping a chunk of flattened roadkill. She estimated the animal carcass was roughly human-sized, around 5 feet 7 inches and about 150 pounds. She said the creature calmly watched her vehicle and followed it with its eyes as she drove away. In late December 1990, a girl named Heather Bowie and several friends were sledding near dusk. They noticed what first looked like a large dog. Then it stood upright. Heather described silver fur with brown patches and a face shaped like a coyote. The children slowly backed away, afraid to turn around. The creature then chased them and followed them about halfway to their house before stopping and returning to a cornfield. One of the other children, Russell Jest, later supported the story. On October 31st, 1991, Doris Gibson said she was driving home on a smoggy evening on Sittler Road, now Hospital Road. She felt her car lift slightly, as if she had struck something. After pulling over and checking, she initially saw nothing. As she walked toward the rear of the car, she saw a creature charging directly at her. She described it as larger than herself, with a hairy chest and pounding footsteps that grew louder on the pavement. She barely made it back inside the car and sped away. Later, on another night after picking up a friend from a party, her passenger pointed out a creature stalking the roadside. Doris did not stop to look and immediately accelerated away. After the first incident, she noticed marks resembling claw scratches on the trunk of her blue Plymouth Sundance. Linda Godfrey confirmed markings existed, though their cause was uncertain. Another notable vehicle encounter happened in August 1992. Tom Brichter and Chris Maxwell were driving through thick fog after a wedding reception in Genesee Depot, Wisconsin, heading toward Jellystone Campground near Fort Atkinson. Chris believed he hit a mailbox and backed up. Instead, they saw a large, hairy creature walking toward them and reaching out. Chris had the window down and said the smell was overpowering, like a skunk. The creature reportedly had whitish-grey fur with darker streaks and scratched the side of the car. Reports continued long after the 1990s. In February 2018 and July 2020, witnesses in Spring Prairie and Lyons, Wisconsin, described large, upright, hairy figures. Another 2020 account came from Ron Rice of Lake Geneva. He said he was delivering fertilizer to a farm on Highway 36 near Lyon. After finishing the job and sitting in his truck, he noticed a figure at the tree line about 150 feet away. He described it as nearly 7 feet tall, covered in coarse brown hair. He said it picked up an unknown object from the ground and disappeared into the brush. The area has also produced stories of animal mutilations. Reports mention deer, livestock, raccoons, badgers, and other animals found partially eaten or with organs removed. John Fredrickson, Walworth County Humane Officer, reportedly investigated several strange scenes. He believed some cases were more severe than simple scavenging. He also claimed the county had a reputation for occult activity during the late 1980s and early 1990s, though many believe teenage pranksters exaggerated those rumors. A retired teacher named Lee Hampel claimed he found roadkill on his property repeatedly disturbed. He said a raccoon was cut open from neck to abdomen, a badger was moved, and later a deer carcass vanished. He set up cameras and believed he captured odd lights, strange movement, and tracks. Casts of footprints were reportedly made, though none became accepted evidence. One of the most discussed modern photos came on January 29, 2020, when a man named Danby Morgan said he photographed a wolf-like creature walking upright on Weeks Road, about a mile from Bray Road. Critics quickly argued the image looked staged, noting unnatural body proportions, stiff limbs, and lack of motion blur. Skeptics offer several explanations. Many believe witnesses saw grey wolves, feral dogs, Great Pyrenees, Newfoundland dogs, or black bears standing upright. Others suggest hoaxes, costumed pranksters, panic in low visibility, and multiple unrelated events being merged into one legend. A popular online theory claims the beast was a black bear with mange. However, wildlife officials have noted mange in Wisconsin bears is uncommon, though bears and wolves do occasionally appear in Walworth County. Supporters counter that many witnesses were ordinary locals who reported similar traits independently: height, upright posture, canine head, glowing eyes, unusual smell, speed, and aggression around roadsides or fields. They also note vehicle scratches, repeated sightings over decades, and reports spanning several nearby towns. The Beast of Bray Road became so famous it inspired documentaries, television specials, books, and a 2005 horror film. Few American werewolf legends have gained the same long-term attention or number of witnesses. Whether it was misidentified wildlife, a collection of separate incidents, a regional panic, or an unknown animal, the Beast of Bray Road remains one of Wisconsin's greatest mysteries.
This is the strongest case in the video, and I want to explain why, because my standard is very specific. What makes me take a case seriously is multiple independent witnesses reporting the same details. Bray Road has that across 3 decades. Different people, different years, same small area, same description. 6 to 7 feet tall, canine head, moves on 2 legs and on 4, terrible smell. Lori and Ritzy in 1989. The Sledding Kids in 1990. Doris Gibson in 1991. A fertilizer driver in 2020. Most of these people gained absolutely nothing from talking, except being laughed at in a small town. That matters to me. Now the skeptic in me still has plenty to say. Wisconsin has wolves, bears, and enormous farm dogs. Almost every sighting happens at night or in fog. And fog plus headlights plus a large animal is a machine for producing monsters. So my best guess, real animals seen badly filtered through a legend everyone in Walworth County already knew. But the consistency here earns my respect. This is the one road in America where I would slow down and watch the tree line. After reviewing the report's witness consistency and available evidence, the Beast of Bray Road receives a level 4, plausible encounter. From the foggy roads of Elkhorn to the cornfields of Walworth County, this legend still refuses to disappear. So step back and look at the whole map. Michigan, Minnesota, Maryland, Quebec, Ohio, Kentucky, Wisconsin. 7 regions, thousands of kilometers apart, and one silhouette keeps appearing, a tall canine that stands like a man. I see 2 explanations, and I think both are true at the same time. 1. The same misidentification repeated everywhere. Bears stand on their hind legs, wolves look enormous in headlights. Fear does the rest, in every state equally. 2. A shared template. The werewolf crossed the ocean with European settlers, and the Dewayo case shows it directly through the Hexen wolf of German folklore. Once the idea of an upright wolf lives in your head, every strange shape in the dark has a name ready and waiting. Real animals, old stories, new names. This is my best guess. But I keep coming back to one thing. Some of these witnesses were hunters, rangers, trained observers, people who know what a bear looks like. So here is my question for you. 7 regions, 1 creature. Is it the same imagination traveling across a continent or the same animal? Tell me in the comments which case you find hardest to explain. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you in the next one.